Well, hello, folks. I'm going to do a little talking video today. We'll see how long it goes for. This is something I've thought about a lot, and if you're a musician watching this, I'm sure you will relate to a lot of this. And what it is trying to understand what music looks like from the perspective of a non-musician. And I'll just keep this in the context of, the Western world, Western culture. In Australia, where I am, you could describe the population here as very conservative, sort of hyper-conservative. But in the context of music, that means really that they only listen to mainstream music, pop music, and whatever's on the radio and whatever's available. And that would be the same depending on the age demographic. So if it's people in their 40s, you'll see these patterns where they all say they like the same thing. If they're 50, then it's Led Zeppelin, it's AC/DC, and you see these patterns where it's all the same, and you go, that's funny, you all like the same music. If you've ever had this experience, which if you're a musician, I'm sure you have, of like non-musician people bringing up music. And if you think about it, to me it seems to be different to anything else. And particularly now in a society where music has been devalued, and it's actually been sort of denigrated and degraded, but it most certainly has been devalued. We know this because recorded music is now free, or people can pay $10 a month for Spotify, and it's all free, and you just turn the radio on. It's like turning the tap or turning a light switch on. So I believe as well that what that does, it devalues the people that make music, right? Because we live in sort of we live in a marketplace, and money is a big deal. Money is a big part of everyone's lives, and it's used as a measurement for success and a whole bunch of things. So imagine if someone, and this is where I'll start to get into these analogies that I've come up with. So maybe I'll just sort of keep talking and they'll come out as they do. But an analogy I use to describe that, to say non-musician people, to get a bit of perspective about the fact that recorded music is free, is something like, imagine going to the trouble of opening a coffee shop, and you're going to buy all the coffee machines, and you're going to buy the furniture, and you're going to fit the kitchen out, and you're going to get all the accounting apps, and you're going to do all that stuff, and then you open your doors and you just give all the coffee away. As many coffees as you want, all day, every day. It's all free. I don't know that with coffee it'd probably be a bit different. But so in this sense, it's sort of like if the music gets devalued, then the musicians get devalued. And then so coming back to like, well, what is a musician to a non-musician person who just listens to piped in mainstream radio music or whatever's popular in the period? And you start to realize that that people have nothing to grab hold of, right? Music's invisible, or it seems to be invisible to people who know nothing about it. So if it's invisible, what is there to grab hold of when they hear a piece of music? All there really is aesthetic, a story, and then of course the emotion that has to get put in there to carry the story. They don't know anything about like a cadence or a chord progression, or that it's gone to a minor, or or the rhythm, or the instrumentation. They wouldn't know a real drum kit from a programmed drum kit, or a fake guitar sound from a real guitar sound. They wouldn't know if a vocal's been tuned. They don't know anything. Just seems different from just about anything else. So I like to use food analogies all the time. And I use food analogies, if I get into a bit of if music comes up and people are willing to listen to my ramblings. But at least with the reason I use food is because everyone can relate to it. With music, people have no idea what's in it. With food, they can put a piece of food in front of them, and everyone's done a bit of cooking, or everyone sort of knows that that's a carrot, and that's a this, and that's a this sauce, and that's a that, and whatever. In music, they can't identify anything on the plate. Nothing. Right? Very, very sort of. Let me know in the comments and stuff if this has been something you've thought about. If you have any ideas about how to explain it to people, or what you've thought about it. But anyway, so that's kind of where I got to with that. Was the other thing is that in modern art, if you like, there's this idea that it's subjective and that all art is subjective. And this is another example of something that only exists, say in that case within art, within music and the arts, that everything's subjective. So if I use a food analogy again, if you're a chef and someone came up to you with a plate and it just had like a charcoal piece of chicken breast on it that had been burnt to a crisp, and then you cut it open and it's raw and still a bit frozen in the middle, and you say, well, that's shit. That's not cooked. In the world of art and music, someone can turn around and go, well, that's what you think. That's just your opinion. And it's like, no, I actually can objectively recognize why it's not cooked and why it's not right, because I also identify what makes it right. It's the same thing with music, right? So a lot of people can't tell the difference between, this will take me on a whole other tangent. I'm all over the place, that's just how I kind of am. It'll come back around. Where was I? Yeah, so Boxing Day Australia, quite warm, beer's good. Coopers, Australian made, Australian brewed, Australian owned. So I find that to be quite strange, and that's what I said was about like people not knowing the difference between what a good musician is and what an ordinary one is. Again, maybe it's related to this idea of subjectivity. So if you had some guy on guitar there who had the right signals and sort of wore the right clothes and had the right hairdo and sort of did all the right actions and strummed out a few whatever folky pop songs, and then you had a guy over there who had a t-shirt and jeans on and played like a hollow body Gibson and was a really awesome jazz guitarist, most people would just go, oh, I think they're both very good. They're both very good. And they wouldn't actually be able to tell that, well, clearly this person is much better at their instrument. Nothing against this guy. If you like it, then you like it. But again, with music, this is like it's blind. People don't see it. Whereas if we take this example and apply it to anything else, let's say motorcycle racing, Well, you can't just say that you're good at motorcycle racing. You can't just say that you know how to ride a bike and just say that you're good at it, because at some point we're going to get two people side by side, and it's going to be very obvious that this person is extremely experienced at riding a motorcycle. And anyone in the general public would recognize that straight away and be able to accept it. But in music, they don't have any idea. Part of it is because, I think, because like we said, there's nothing to grab hold onto except for emotion, story and aesthetics. So when people look at massive big pop acts and all of that, they have no idea about how that music's made. They don't realise that the artist doesn't write the songs. They don't realise that the artist doesn't even play an instrument or even design the choreography or do anything a lot of the time. Because there's no pathway to understanding how all of that's happening. And certainly in this country, which is a consumer culture and a materialist society, it seems to be amplified within music that how to gauge someone's ability or whether they're a good musician is just by success. Meaning how famous are they? So, you can't suggest that someone who's really famous might be an ordinary musician, or say that, they don't write songs or they don't this or whatever. The general public doesn't want to hear that. They seem to struggle with that. And I think that's because if you think about another food analogy, if you think about McDonald's, once again, if we take this perception of music and we superimpose it over something else, then, and I'll say this to people sometimes to try and awaken this thing, it doesn't do much good really. It's like, if we assume that because an artist is uber famous, well then obviously they're uber talented and they're really amazing and blah, 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 blah. If we take that and superimpose it on something else, can we then assume that McDonald's, because what's the most famous food restaurant chain in the world? Everyone would probably say McDonald's, whether it is or not, Taco Bell, whatever. But probably McDonald's is what you'd say. So if we only use fame and notoriety as our measure of quality, then one would just assume that, McDonald's must be excellent food made by excellent chefs who are all very, very talented and all of that. But for some reason, if you say that to people, it kind of twigs and part of them seems to go, oh yeah, but they still can't connect it with the music thing. They just can't accept that maybe that big pop act that you really love is not very good. And here's the reason why. The reason why is because they've imbued these songs with so much emotion, right? So take, for example, I'm trying not to mention the artist's name. They put it on the thing. But there's certain songs and things now by certain artists, pop mainstream artists, that these have been played at people's weddings and their funerals, and those songs have been imbued with a lot of emotion in that person's life. So when you come along and go, well, that's nice, but it's a shit song, and here's why. Again, they have no way of understanding what you're telling them, so they just feel bad that you're sort of saying that the song's not very good, right? So now you're sort of making them not feel too good about this song that was played at their daughter's wedding, which doesn't make them feel too good. It's a bit dissonant. And then if there's any question around you, it's like, well, are you famous? So if you can't go rattling off some famous names, or you're not famous, So now you're some not famous person who's kind of just made them feel a little bit shitty. And therefore they feel completely valid in invalidating whatever it is that you might be saying. That was a bit of a chewy one, but hopefully that makes sense. And here's another one I'll just spit out, because you would have had this happen to you if you play gigs, you know. Like, has anyone ever said anything like, they sort of get to this point where they say, oh, well, you never know, mate, you know, you keep it up and you just never know, do you? Because once again, they're using fame as the measure of success with music. There's nothing else to hold on to. They can't actually identify that you've skilled. And so they'd sort of go, you know, oh, well, you never know, and keep it up, and oh, and it could happen, and all of that, right? So once again, let's take that scenario and superimpose it over something else. Like, would they ever go into a mechanic who's been in business for 14 years in a local town and services the surrounds and the locals, and, you know, and has a few side projects where he builds a dragster or something like that? Would they ever walk into that workshop and go, say you ever mechanicked for like Michael Schumacher? And the guy goes, nah. And they go, oh, well, I reckon keep at it, mate. You never know, you know. You might get there one day if you just keep it up. Imagine how ridiculous that would sound. Guy's like, okay, thanks for that. Or if you said that to a cafe owner, like they've got a cafe that turns a profit and everything else, and you go, so have you got one in New York? You, oh, well, how many you got? 2? Oh, well, you keep at it, you never know, you know. One day you might be McDonald's, you know. So it's so funny. There's like a constant invalidation of it. However, if the musician is symbolizes the musician, so whatever that is, you're wearing the right clothes and you're doing the moves and you got the haircut and stuff, and you play that type of stuff, that seems authentic to people, and they can grab hold. Oh, no, that's a musician, and that seems authentic to them, because all of these superficial aesthetics are all there. Yeah, I'm interested to know if anyone actually watches this, and can give me their thoughts on it, because I never get to talk about it, and I'd love to hear some other people's experiences. It's quite amazing. You know, you can get... There's so many musicians that to us are very well known, but to the general public doesn't know who they are. They have no idea that who makes all the music that comes through the radio. So it's really interesting. It's sort of frightening and interesting as well. To me, the music has not only been devalued, as I said in the beginning, but I said it's been degraded as well, and that's because it's so infantile. I mean, 40-year-old women listening to Taylor Swift, that's infantile. It's sort of like, give me another analogy again, it's like you're living on the food on the supermarket shelves, right? No problem with that, all good, whatever. But to not even know that there's any other food out there. And in the case of music, you don't know what any of the ingredients are at all, or how any of it's made. You know, and then you're going to sit down and have a discussion with the chef and rattle off all these things. Oh, you had 4 and 20 pies, yeah? You like 4 and 20, or you like Mrs. Max? Which ones? And in your head, you're thinking, like, I don't need that fucking stupid supermarket processed bullshit, you know. But they don't know anything else. Another last, I'll wind it up because I'm a bit too tangential. It's an anti-intellectualism. So like jazz music and world music and classical music is kind of intellectual music. People don't like that. They don't like intellectual food either a lot of the time. And just to finish it, on the infantile thing, I've said this before, I'm trying to lighten up a bit with these videos, instead of man yelling at clouds. You can actually see this in action, because if you play a Wiggles song at like a party when people have had a bit to drink and all that, do it. If you've got a covers band and you do that sort of thing, throw a couple of Wiggles songs, Hot Potato, Wake Up Jeff are some good ones. Throw those into your repertoire, and if you want to get the dance floor really cranking, you watch. The people my age up there doing it, they know the moves and they know the words and they love it. Totally infantile. If you want to completely put them to sleep and make them cross, play some Afro-Cuban jazz or something like that. You know, play A Night in Tunisia. Excuse me. It's like the beer baron from The Simpsons who hadn't laughed in so long. But anyway, I'll leave it there. And see what you think of that, and leave your comments and leave your thoughts, and let me know your ideas on all of that and what your experiences have been, and what your perception of all of that is, particularly if you're like a gigging musician or have been. And enjoy the holidays. Cooper's mid-strength. Thank you.